So I would just like to know, what is advanced modeling and why is it useful?
Well, typically when people take modeling training, what happens is they're introduced to the fundamental concepts and some of the important distinctions that they use to elicit a model from somebody, which of course is great. Then they need time to go off and use those distinctions. They need to experiment with them and develop some facility in recognizing them and so on. But that will only take you so far. And then there comes a point where there are a lot of subtleties that are involved in modeling that people don't get when they're introduced to it, such as how to make very fine distinctions in the language that people use. What do the distinctions in the language they use tell you about the structure of their experience? As well as one of the things that's typically not taught is how to take patterns from different people, different exemplars, and combine them and refine them into a single generic model. So those are a couple of things that you'd want to cover in advanced training. And in addition to that, how do you prepare a model in order to make it available to other people? Because that's something else that's not covered initially. You know, is there everything that you have in your model? Do you really need it in order to teach it to somebody else? What order do you teach these things in? Do you present, you know, which patterns do you present first, and what sequence do you present them? And then there's the question of how do you do that? You know, what is the actual acquisition process? So I think those are all topics that you ultimately want to get to if you're going to be really competent at doing modeling. And it requires more time, and you know, it's only appropriate for somebody who's already been introduced to the process and to some of the distinctions, so that they're not having to be lost in those fundamental basics, and they can pay attention to the more sophisticated aspects of it.
Okay. And why would you say, why is it useful for someone to learn that?
To learn modeling in general, or
even advanced modeling and specifically?
Well, modeling in general, I think, is essential as far as I'm concerned, just in having a rich life. Because what really comes from modeling, I think, one of the probably the biggest benefits of exploring modeling is that it opens you up to and makes you more aware of the patterns of experience, how experience works in other people and in yourself. So that just in your day-to-day life, as you make sense out of what you're doing, or you listen or watch other people do what they do, you can pick up all kinds of patterns that, first of all, help you understand them and yourself. But secondly, they're patterns that you can take on yourself. I mean, you don't have to take on a whole model, do a whole modeling and take on a whole model to benefit from that kind of thinking. You can simply, for instance, recognize that, oh, this friend of mine is using he's in a tight spot. He's trying to figure something out, and he uses a very excellent criterion. He uses this criterion which I never thought of before. I could use that criterion. So it's not a whole modeling thing. You're just going after this one pattern that can make a big difference. So I think that's the true rich benefit of pursuing modeling, and in fact that's what I really want for the people in my trainings. Then of course beyond that there is the formal aspects of modeling. You can go certainly some distance without an introductory training, but then I think you need advanced if you're really going to pursue the formal aspects. And there the benefit of that, of course, is that do have then the tools, conceptual and interactional tools that you need to identify, elicit the relevant patterns, and formulate a model for specific abilities, and then present them in some kind of coherent way, either so that you can use it, or more specifically so that you can make it available to other people in one form or another. And so I think anybody who's interested in having those kinds of wider effects, learning things that they can then apply with other people or offer to other people, then I think you would certainly want to go into advanced modeling.